Sunday's showdown on ABC's This Week between Vice President J.D. Vance and anchor George Stephanopoulos was one for the books. If you tuned in or even just seen a few clips, you saw a senior Republican not only holding his ground, but also completely dominating the narrative. This is going to be a good one, so make sure you like, comment, and watch to the end, and don't forget to subscribe for more daily news updates. It means the world to me. Stephanopoulos had repeatedly pressed J.D. Vance on a reported FBI sting that happened in September 2024, where agents allegedly handed over $50,000 of money in a bag to border czar Tom Homan. And the question is, did Homan take the money? Did he keep the money? What did he do with it? And this is where Vice President Vance flatly rejected that Homan did any wrongdoing. He called it a ridiculous smear, and there's no evidence that Homan did anything illegal or violated any laws. Vance shifted the posture. Instead of fighting over such a minute issue, he actually accused Stephanopoulos by losing credibility over obsessing these scandal pieces instead of following the stories that are real crisis. Things like the government shutdown, global tensions, and supply chain threats. And with all of the tensions rising, Stephanopoulos insisted that he isn't insinuating anything, but only asking. But before Vice President Vance could even get a word in or even respond, Stephanopoulos cut him off mid-sentence and went to commercial. And the bottom line is, the anchor lost control. And what the viewers in the world saw was a media figure trying to trap a public official and failing. And that right there will always look bad. The way the viewers in the media will accept it will never be good. Now, there's winning on facts, and there's also winning on perception. And Vice President Vance did both of those things. Instead of being on the defense, Vance made Stephanopoulos the one to defend why he's obsessing so much over these false scandals. By cutting off Vice President Vance mid-sentence, it made Stephanopoulos look weak, desperate, and tone policing. So why is this a terrible look for the press? When anchors are pushing tangents instead of substance, mind you, in the middle of a shutdown, it lets the viewers know where the priorities are laying. And it reinforces the idea that the press cares more about scandals than they do real issues. Now, for years, Democrats have claimed the moral and integrity mantle. But when a Republican says, shut up or show me proof, suddenly the burden is on them to defend their own investigators and their own stories. The old playbook: accuse, leak, push the narrative. American viewers are tired of circular drama. They want leaders who push real issues. Moments like this show us that even powerful media can also be outmaneuvered. So when people ask, did Vance win? Yes, he did. On messaging, on optics, and on momentum. He didn't just defend this false accusation. He challenged the very assumption that journalists get to pin on Republicans with every substantiated claim. Let's take a look at this clip that has been going around of Stephanopoulos cutting off Vance mid-sentence after Vance was right in the middle of answering a question, and it left a very awkward silence. Take a look.
I know what tape you're referring to, George. I saw media reports that Tom Homan accepted a bribe. There's no evidence of that. And here's, George, why fewer and fewer people watch your program and why you're losing credibility. Because you're talking for now 5 minutes with the Vice President of the United States about this story regarding Tom Homan, a story that I've read about, but I don't even know the video that you're talking about. Meanwhile, low-income women can't get food because the Democrats and Chuck Schumer have shut down the government. Right now, we're trying to figure out how to pay our troops because Chuck Schumer has shut down the government. You are focused on a bogus story. You're insinuating criminal wrongdoing against a guy who has done nothing wrong instead of focusing on the fact that our country is struggling because our government's shut down. Let's talk about the real issues, George. I think the American people would benefit much more from that than from you going down some weird left-wing rabbit hole where the facts clearly show that Tom Homan didn't engage in any criminal wrongdoing.
It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted $50,000, as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning.
No, George, I said that I don't.
Up next, we'll be right back.
Viewing that clip, I can see why this video is making its rounds. You can clearly hear Vance actually answering a question. He was about to dive more into exactly what he said and Stephanopoulos totally disregarded him and went straight to commercial. He was speaking over him at one point in the video. That's not a good look for anyone, especially our media coverages that are supposed to be telling us news that we can trust. I wouldn't be surprised if he's suspended for the next couple of episodes of this news. And there are also other parts of the segment that feel a little off, but don't worry, we'll get into that a little bit later. Now I want to take a look at a clip of News Australia going over the heated exchange. Let's take a look.
Joining me now is Newsweek Senior Editor-at-Large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel Josh Hammer. Josh, JD Vance had this to say about that interview he posted on X. Peace in the Middle East, China threatening critical supply chains, government shutdown. No, George doesn't care about that. He's here to focus on the real story, a fake scandal involving Tom Homan. I've got to say, Josh, I don't know why George quit that interview so abruptly. Surely he's not so sensitive about JD calling out his dwindling audience numbers?
Yeah, Rita, ABC, let's not forget, was the media organization that hosted the vice presidential debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, a truly loathsome and pathetic attempt at a moderated debate. That was actually probably the single worst moderated debate, at least in my estimation, of the entire cycle last year. So they've shown their true colors. I mean, frankly, when it comes to the corporate media here in the United States, who has not shown their true colors? I mean, CBS News making a very interesting decision in hiring Barry Weiss to be editor-in-chief. We'll see how that plays out. But ABC certainly doubling down on stupid. And J.D. Vance is totally right, by the way, which is that this is exactly why all these networks are just losing ratings. ABC is also Jimmy Kimmel's network. That we saw what happened with Jimmy Kimmel recently, when you had Sinclair and Nexstar and various other affiliates that decided to briefly drop his show from the air. So Rita, this is why more Americans in general, especially in my generation, millennials, Gen Z, this is why so many people come up without even having access to TV. The people these days get their news on the internet. They get their news on social media here. I mean, very few people are watching ABC, NBC, and CBS other than Boomer 65 and up there. But J.D. Vance is not a boomer. J.D. Vance is very much of, by, and for a younger generation. That's one of the many reasons, Rita, why I was so personally excited and gung-ho about his political candidacy in the first place there. And I think it's one of his major appeals moving forward as we barrel ahead towards 2028.
What I got from that is that we're not the only ones feeling the same way about how that interview went over. We can clearly see that George got intimidated and destroyed, and he just wanted to end it. I personally don't think he would have kept going because there's nothing else to say. Yes, you can focus on a scandal that seems so important, but we're going through times where we know what's really important and what's really at face value right now. A government shutdown. Why isn't that the talk of the town for you? Lastly, I want to take a look at a clip of George deliberately trying to get a negative reaction out of VP Vance by asking over the same question about Chicago's mayor when Vance clearly already answered it in a respectful way. Take a look at this.
But as you know, a federal judge, a U.S. district judge, has blocked the effort to deploy troops in Chicago. And it was Judge Perry, and she actually said that a lot of these claims that were made, especially in the court filings, lack credibility.
Well, George, we're obviously going to litigate this as much as we can. We think that we have the authority to provide proper safety to our citizens all over the United States, but particularly in Chicago. But I think for any federal judge or anybody else to look at this situation and say, is it tolerable? And I think the obvious answer, George, is no. The president looks at this situation. He sees the fact that you have multiple people dying of murders every weekend in the city of Chicago, and he says this is intolerable. And it's not just the people who live in Chicago, it's the law enforcement in Chicago, federal, state, and local, who are trying to keep us safe. George, you've seen ICE agents being teed off on in suburban Chicago, in places all over the state of Illinois and other places too. You see 1,000% increase in violence against our ICE agents. They're being assaulted, they're being beaten, they're being shot at. I think all Americans, Democrat or Republican, we look at this scenario, we say, this is not acceptable. We want people to be safe. We want our law enforcement officials to be empowered to keep us safe. We can do this, and that's exactly what the Trump administration has committed to doing.
Governor Pritzker is our next guest. President Trump has said that he should be in jail. Do you think Governor Pritzker has committed a crime?
Well, I think Governor Pritzker has certainly failed to keep the people of Illinois safe. And it's interesting to me, Governor Pritzker will talk a lot, I'm sure, about how bad Donald Trump is, about how bad I am, and about how bad the administration is. He is the governor of a state that where its biggest city has murder rates that rival the most violent places in the third world, George. Why is he so mad at Donald Trump for trying to keep Chicagoans safe? He should be mad at the criminals that he has failed to keep at bay. We're trying to help him. And we're trying to help the residents of his biggest city. I wish that he would let us, because he certainly isn't doing the job himself.
I asked if you agree with President Trump that Governor Pritzker has committed a crime.
Well, I think that Governor Pritzker has allowed a lot of people to be killed in the city of Chicago and elsewhere, George. I think that it's disgraceful, and I think that he absolutely should suffer some consequences for the fact that there are thousands of innocent Chicagoans who are dead because he failed to do his job.
It's really a yes or no question. Do you believe he's committed a crime?
George, you're going to keep on asking this question. I'm going to keep on telling you that Governor Pritzker has failed to do his job. He should suffer some consequences, whether he's violated a crime ultimately.
There's a lot to unpack in that clip. We can see that Stephanopoulos, he's repeating the same question. Did Pritzker commit a crime? It's not as simple as that, and Vance is saying it in a respectful way. Maybe he didn't commit a crime, maybe he did, but failing to do your job, that can be a crime in itself. There should not be thousands of people who are continuously dying and being murdered in violent ways because your governor only wants to focus on how bad the president, the vice president, and the administration are. You can say whatever you want to say about them, but is your city, is your state safe? That should be your main priority. So clearly you can see that he didn't want to answer if it was a crime or not, but the job isn't being done well, and that's a problem in itself. Nothing much more to say about that. Take the answer that you were given because it was a good one. I don't know if Stephanopoulos was just expecting to hear, yes, it was a crime according to law, or yes, it was a crime according to morals. People can look at it all types of ways. At the end of the day, if the job's not being done, you can pick either side. Morally, for me, it could be a crime. Legally, maybe it's not. Who gets to say so or not? The people who it's affecting. And those are the people who want to see some change. So if President Trump is doing it, let him do it. If it can stop people from dying and live a longer life, then so be it. And to be a journalist, Stephanopoulos was already seeming kind of biased towards if he really liked Vance or not. Your job is just to report on the news. Ask the questions, get the answers, and report on it. Not have your own tendencies and bias come into play. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on KW Lawholic.